Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Director. Thank you for joining us. I'm comparing the numbers here between revenue growth projections, and the Governor projected 1.5% increase in revenue, and your office has projected 0.8%, so a little more modest. My question relates to this budget process and how it will unfold. The question is, has the Governor been, I'm going to use the word aggressive, and I'll invite you to comment on that word aggressive with his projections so that he can add back into the budget items that are popular and well received, but that as we go through the months of revenue tracking, and of course March and April are the two big months of every year, do you have a concern that we're going to start to tread water, that we could accumulate a deficit that as we get into the final budget deliberations, we're going to have to back off of some of the funding that we've put in place? Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think for next fiscal year, if you compare our numbers to the Governor's, again, in the executive budget, if you hold back the policy, they have general fund growth rate of 1.3%, and we've now come up to roughly 1%. So the numbers aren't that different, but very, very similar. The large difference, as you noted, is for the current fiscal year. We're currently $230 million below the Governor. So I interpret that to mean that the Governor's budget includes a bit more of an upside for the current fiscal year. Of course, once that's in place and you apply the growth rate, that is then carried over to the next fiscal year. There are some concerns moving forward. In particular, I would note with the gross receipts tax that there could be a substantial weakness there. The data that we're seeing right now from the Energy Information Association suggests a reduction in tax liability of 8 percentage points. That would be very unusual. So there could be a lot of monies lost just in that tax alone.
And I'm going to ask you to unpack that a little bit for us. What sectors of the economy drive that line, and more broadly, where are we still weak? What do you perceive there?
With gross receipts, two things are driving. One is telecom and the other is electric. And in telecom, one would expect a slow decline in the tax base. That's been occurring. We expect that would occur again this year. The big surprise is in the electric sector. And if you look at the data, what you see, irregardless of the type of user, industrial, commercial, residential, there is a broad-based decline in Pennsylvania of the 8%. Part of that is due to a reduction in demand, and part of that is due to a reduction in price. If we compare it to the U.S., the reduction is only 2%. So Pennsylvania, a bit different than the U.S., but still it's very unusual that those sales, that tax liability would actually decline.
Very good. It'd be interesting to know if our push toward alternative energy portfolio has contributed to that, but that's a question for another day. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.